YouTube, and we are ready to go. Chris Cotton.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see all these.
Oh, one more thing. I am going to mute everybody out. So if you're speaking, you're going to have to unmute yourself. Okay, done.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Heat Team call. This is Chris Cotton and my wife, Nikki, hosting tonight's call. We're really excited to have our guest speaker, none other than Jeff Olson. We're going to jump into that in just a second. Yeah, welcome to the Heat. So what I want to start off with, by the way, is that, you know, we have a subject that we're going to talk about tonight, and there's nobody better on the planet that I know of personally to talk about it than Jeff Olson. But I do want you to also know that Carrie Daigle did an interview with Jeff last month, and we just put it out on Broadcast Voxer, the link to the YouTube channel. So if you're on our Broadcast Voxer, which I think all of you are from Nikki's, the link is there. It's a much lengthier interview, but Jeff really gets to reveal a lot of really cool stuff about who he is and his philosophies. And it's always a pleasure for me to introduce Jeff, because now I'm going to see if I can find him. There we are. Because we have a lot of fun, and we've done some things together. Did a little helicopter skiing in Alaska. Some people, you know, we're going to be talking about fear tonight, and some people have called both of us fearless, and that's really not very accurate, but we'll get more into that later. But I will tell you that on one trip up in Alaska, following Jeff just scared the holy hell out of me. So I just wanted to have that introduction to get rolling with this. So most of you know who Jeff is. He's a two-time Olympian, a Pan Am Games gold medal winner, a downhill skier for representing our country, three-time national champion at that. And so again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But right now, Jeff, I'd like to have you just come on and give us a little bit of your product and business story with Juice Plus.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Chris. Couple decades into this fun ticket that I signed up for with my wife, not knowing what we signed up for. How many people didn't know what they signed up for when you signed the app, man? Right? So we are a well-kept secret. That's why they pay us accordingly. Yeah, so look, my story, what can I say? I'm a bro in a women's business, learning how to bring a man's voice into a sea of estrogen, which is awesome. I've learned more about business from women than men. Maybe Cotton's taught me a few things too. I got my mission from Cotton, which I've distilled and edited down to be a blessing. And aerodynamics was important in my sport, and whittling it all down, when it all gets into a blur, that's my reset. That's my reboot. It immediately sort of gets me out of myself and into the task at hand, which is trying to shine the light on others and help others fly and do all the things that they want to do. So yeah, my story. I was, first half of my life, transport for testosterone, I would say. Alpha male, kinetic, you know, downhill ski racing. I found my sport. It was dangerous. It was fun. It was outside. It was adrenaline, all those things that you can imagine. But I was probably a candidate for Ritalin if they had it back then. I just had to move. So I was a kinetic child. I found sport. It became my outlet, and it drove me for 28 years of my life. The interesting thing about the end of my career was overtraining ended my career. I overtrained. I beat my body to a pulp, and I developed patella tendonitis. I had very proud of my legs. They were my asset. But if your tendon is compromised, it doesn't really matter how strong your legs are. And that came from overtraining. So what's the lesson there? It's okay to work hard in life, but working hard and working smart is actually better. And I was not always the smartest worker. So I retired. I got a wife out of the deal, though. I met her at the Olympics, so she's my gold medal. So I win. And we headed off into the sunset, retired. And I did what any alpha male's supposed to do, is go chase money on Wall Street. So I got my degree in finance and business finance and didn't know anything about anything. When I retired, I was green behind the ears. Being a professional athlete, very insulated life. It's a protected bubble. Maybe not so much now, but I was very naive, very ignorant. But I said, I'm going to go do money, and I got my first suit and tie job. Made a ton of money. It was very well paid, expense account, but I was traveling 60% of the time, and that's what I thought I was supposed to be doing. It was providing for then my budding family. We just started to have children, and Tony, my wife, she had left the corporate world. I married up, magna summa cum laude and double major, and but she had left the corporate world, started having kids, and it was end of the 1990s, early 2000. My father, I'm actually up in Montana right now. We're building a house up here. You have a boys ski trip next year, Cotton, in Montana at the ski
All right,
house.
sounds good.
My dad called me up, and he had some health challenges, and he said, what do you think of this fruit and vegetable powder stuff? He didn't say that. He said, what do you think of Juice Plus? And I took one look at it, and my brain thought fruit and vegetable powders. Well, isn't that refreshingly simple? That makes sense. And I listened to my intuition. If athletes do anything well, is they listen to their intuition. And I was sort of ruthlessly practical. It's another sort of athletic trait. They tend to be athletes are ruthlessly practical. They'll do what works. And I saw this as something that was simple, sensible. And why wouldn't you want matter that matters in your body every day, Dad? And then I took it to my wife and said, hey, we should do this too. And she poo-pooed it. She turned her nose up at it. And she's like, oh, we eat it right from the store. You know, we make it ourselves. We don't do that. Thinking it was a vitamin pill, right? Fast forward a year later, she heard about it from someone else. So enter the concept of third-party validation. That's why I'm here today, to tell you things you already know, but you're not doing, maybe, perhaps. Profit, you're never a prophet in your own home, right? So I was like, that's that stuff you won't let us take. And she did her own homework. She buys the groceries. So say, we'll give it a go. And we became customers. Shortly thereafter, she did the math and she said, hey, maybe we could pay for our own consumption and I'll become a little rep and make a little money. And give you the Cliff Note version of that story. She started paying the mortgage, maybe, 9-10 months later, maybe a year later. And that's what got my attention on the business. The product made sense to me immediately. The business, not so much. I was wrapped around the axle on the business because of the stereotypical things that haven't changed since we all got in the business. Like, it's one of those things, but they were all illusions of knowledge. I was intellectually ignorant. I didn't know what I didn't know. I had a big ego, which is, an acronym for excludes great opportunity. But here's what I did right. I did one thing right. And if you have spouses or people that are close to you that are not supportive, you got to keep them close to this fire and let other people do the conversation for you. Whether it's three-way calls or Zooms or getting to finally events when we're going to do that, but they need to hear from others because I had to hear it from others on the business. She had to hear it from others on the product. And that's that triangular truth somehow gets through to people's brains versus someone that they know and care about and love. There's a filter there. So when she started paying the mortgage, so the one thing I did right was I attended events. I was her date. I was the supportive spouse. But in my head, I was like, you go, girl. I could not see this as a business for myself. As a man, as a baller, as a gamer, Wall Street, technology. It's like, how do I do this little itty bitty fruit and vegetable business? And as the saying goes, your check gets big enough and then it becomes our business, honey, and let's roll. So I came in guns blazing and let's blast fax this thing and redo the marketing plan and just reinvent the wheel. And boy, was I humbled in really great ways. And it's the humbling, everyone goes through a humbling in this business to realize that it's one thing to lead yourself, but it's a completely different thing to help lead others. And that was my own sort of personal journey and understanding what women do naturally, which is servant leadership, which is caring, which is empathy, which is vulnerability, which is basically cracking the egg open and like sharing your life. Men are more transactional. Men are like, show me the bottom line. This is so good. Why isn't it sold at Walmart? It's so good. Show me the money. Like those, man brain kind of questions. And so a way to get a guy's attention is
Whoops.
Are we still on?
Yeah, we're still on, but somebody is sharing the screen. Whoever just hit that screen. Can you go, I don't know what, that's never happened to me.
All right.
Yeah, who's ever shown
Somebody
the
named,
screen?
somebody named Venetia McGee.
Can you please stop your screen? Thank you. Okay.
So, where was I? Yeah. So I lost. Where am I? Where was I?
Okay, we're gonna. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you want to take over, boss?
Yeah, let's get back in on that because
Yep.
it's a great story. Thank you for that. But I want to take as much time as we can to talk about this thing.
Yep.
I asked Jeff what he wanted to talk about. We decided he wanted to call it Fear Plus. And it's exciting because that's the one thing that stops everybody in the business is fear. And so right now, what I want you to talk about a little bit, Jeff, is like, this is where only you have this experience of none of the rest of us, even those of us that ski, know what it's like going down a mountain at 90 miles an hour, probably an icy mountain. And there's got to be some fear involved, I'm sure. So just give us a little rundown back on your philosophy of fear specifically related to your sport.
Yeah. So yeah, my sport of downhill ski racing, penalty for error, as we used to say, was high. Death was present. I've actually witnessed people dying in front of me in my sport. I've had 18 broken bones and 12 surgeries and a lot of war stories over a glass of bourbon. I'll tell you all about them. But yeah, so injury, pain, all of that stuff. But the upside was the thrill of living at life's edge to a certain extent. And when you're in your 20s, I mean, that's what you do, right? You do crazy things. And what I didn't realize was the life skill that I was conditioning over those years, which was kind of playing around with my amygdala. I was playing around with fear as a playmate. And I gave fear a name. And
Can
you know, when you call fear George or you call fear Karen, or, you know, you have some fun name, you just call it, you objectify it, and you can kind of like play around with it. And so the thing about fear is if you can learn to be its playmate, then you learn how, well, so in my sport, you know, fear was a natural response to a very real thing, right? Like danger, like physical frickin' danger. And the upside was actually executing and doing the thing and getting to the bottom and saying, that was so effing fun, I want to do it again. And I can remember the first time, and this is a metaphor maybe for our business. Well, we'll get into that in a second, but I think what I did was I had 10,000 hours playing with fear. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but in my middle age, it's like, oh, that's pretty good life skill. Pretty doggone good life skill. And I guess maybe just took for granted. It's like a fish can't distinguish themselves from water. I've come to learn that not everyone processes like my brain processes. So that's just having empathy. I lack empathy a lot of times. Like, what, you don't think, what's the matter? But the empathy, you know, I understand people's brains don't work like my brain, and so that's been a learning for me and helping them work through it. Like, and maybe some tips and tricks and hacks that can help them play around with it and get through it.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
I have a quick question. So first of all, do you have a name for fear, Jeff? Can you share? Chris asked you, but what was the name that you named?
George.
George. And did that mean that when you were in the fear of whatever it was, number one, did you have a conversation with fear? And I don't know if I'm taking this too far ahead, Chris.
Well, I'm concerned about timing, so.
Well, I just was curious if just in a few sentences, Jeff, in terms of business, how would you have a conversation with fear now? It's not death defying, but how can people use that? I love this idea.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Chris is going to like make the transition and tee me up for that.
Yeah, exactly. But before we leave this part, you did mention in our conversation that you treated fear as a competitor. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, just very succinctly. When fear came up, it was like, finally a worthy competitor. I respected fear, but I knew what it would do, what it would do was focus. It would demand focus, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way I can say it. It demanded focus, and it was a playmate. And when it came up, I was like, whew, and the
Yeah.
world got really small and really focused. And so I learned that dance.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later, but okay, so now let's bring it to present moment. Um, you know, everybody here has probably heard this phrase that we're a personal development program cleverly disguised as a business. So how are you dealing with fear in your business as a philosophy for both your personal response and teaching others?
Yeah. So if you let's just deconstruct fear for a moment and look at some facets of fear. Call it anxiety, call it worry, call it loss of control, call it uncertainty. You know, there's a lot of uncertainty flying around. There's a lot of anxiety flying around. There's a lot of worry flying around. My humble opinion is those are facets of fear in their curiosity stage.
Mm.
That's how I sort of describe it. And so if you have anxiety, if you have worry, if you have uncertainty, my, I guess, just awareness, my self-awareness, just my awareness says that, oh, that's fear being curious right now. It's in its curiosity stage. It's trying to grow and metastasize, right? It wants to metastasize into, that's how we create mountains out of molehills, right?
Yeah.
In our head. But it's the beginning of a thing. And so if you have anxiety, and if you have worry, and if you have uncertainty, understand that it will metastasize if you don't, nip it in the bud. Full-blown fear is maybe a different thing, but with our team, as we were talking to Chris, this ain't downhill ski racing, as Bob Burdick says, you want to talk about work? Hanging sheetrock is work, man. This is a pretty civilized play date with fear, because like, what's the worst that can happen? I've not lost any friends from this. Most of the bros that are on Wall Street or working in tech or in corporate America, they all want my life now. I had to suffer the short-term ignorance of the short-term derision from ignorant people, because they just didn't know what I knew. And my mom was embarrassed to tell her mom mates what I did for a living for a few years. But now she's as proud as ever. So there is that, but understand that people are looking at you because they think they know. It's like Brene Brown and the quote on Roosevelt, like, dude, you're not in the arena. You have no freaking idea to criticize. You don't even know. And when I get people who sort of have that resistance, I bless their heart. I learned that from the folks in the South. I'll bless their heart, because it's usually coming from a place of ignorance. Just say, we know what we know, man. We got functional food, plant food, could make a huge difference in the world. Most people get wrapped around self worth,
Mm-hmm.
the business model, which is, I can deconstruct that for you real simply. I'm not good enough.
Big one.
Which is kind of like a self-worth thing. Or
Right.
I'm too cool, a lot of ITC, I'm too cool thing.
And don't forget FOPO.
Yeah. So the fear of other people's opinion, right? So there is that little bit of play early on where you have maybe you don't like sales. 90, you're not a unicorn. Turns out 95% of the people in the world don't like sales, and it turns out the good thing is the best sales, like the good old fashioned wheeler dealer salespeople, don't do very well in our business anyway. So sales stops a lot of people. Self-awareness stops a lot of people. Opinions of others stops a lot of people. Our business model, stops a lot of people. And that's about it. There's like 3 or 4 or 5 things that just stop people cold. And people don't ever like take those things on and work through them to where they actually just absolutely dissolve. Like, they will disappear if you work through them and understand that most of your fear is grounded in a freaking illusion.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 things stop people in our business. They always have, they always will. And that's, we try to help you play on the right side of your own bell curve, like your A game, man. And that's busting through things that most people, it stops. So.
Yeah, Jeff, what I want to say is, I told you that quote I read this morning, that fear, either you're going to, people treat fear one of two ways. Either you're going to recognize it so you can release it.
Yeah.
Or you are going to accept it and accept that it's coming and try to hide from it. And trying to hide from it, I love what you said about when fear came up as a ski racer, you couldn't afford that because it changed your focus. And then it expands. If you start thinking about it, it's going to get bigger. That's what happens when you try to hide from fear.
Yeah.
You will not be able to do it. So, and I like the Brene Brown thing, the other quote, which she says, we don't want you to change who you are. We want you to be who you are. Yeah. And that's the problem that I want to see addressed, because I believe that if people would just kind of get past that lack of self-worth, the fear of not being enough, and bring who they are, bring it to the party, you have the authenticity that attracts other authenticity. So everybody's heart is open and you're gonna have an incredible conversation. And that's, I think, the secret to getting past the fear. What's your advice for people?
Look, like if you're new to this business, or you haven't earned as much money as you think you should be earning in this business, and you got a lot of self-doubt, and like, how do you just like throw that elephant on the table? It's like, yeah, I've been in this thing 5 years and I haven't made, a ton of money, but people are crushing it. Like, don't look at my example. Look at, like, you can play around. Like, I think self-deprecating humor, just like, call yourself out, have a little fun with, throwing yourself under the bus, say, oh, I'm a knucklehead. You probably do it way better than me. There's ways to be straight and authentic and cast a light into, your own, stumbling and bumbling. And I try to do that whenever I can. And I think our business, one of the ways that you get through fear is you become a student you become a student of this company, a student of this product, a student of this business model. And like I had a lot of brain damage around the business model. And what's wrong? Look, network marketing has gained a very bad reputation for a very real reason. You need to know what those reasons are. And pretty simple. They're not complicated. It's, selling blue sky, selling bling, selling money, selling the dream, and then having people spend a couple $1,000s to join the club. Call that front end loading, right? A high front end loaded fee. Being compensated to recruit. Like, if I get you to join the club and pay the fee to join the club, I get remuneration. We don't have that. We don't have a front end load. We're the only one I'm aware of in the whole freaking industry, let alone the direct sales industry, let alone franchising, that offers a full healthcare benefits package. We are an absolute unicorn when it comes to the product. And I distinguish our product as plant powders. I talk to our team, say, don't say Juice Plus, say plant powders first, because that's a category, and categories keep the brain open. So then you can do the education. And it's the same thing with our business. And the terminology that we use is we're a network agency. That's just for our team. Network agency, what's that? We name it, we claim it, and then we distinguish from franchising, direct sales, network marketing, and corporate. Because Jay Martin, in his infinite wisdom, says, I like this from corporate, I like this from direct sales, I like this from network marketing, I like this from franchising, but let's get rid of this from corporate, let's get rid of this from network marketing, let's get rid of this from franchising. So they've taken what's best, Jay, in his wisdom, tried to take what's best and discard the rest from these 4 things. So we're a modern mashup, completely unique. And my position to corporate, it's like, we need to freaking name and claim a new thing, like network agency. What's that? The human brain craves novelty. Human brain craves novelty. And if your language is tired, and like, we shouldn't be using the language of network marketing. We should be just using like business partners, just like simple translatable terms, because we have our own little lingua franca, our own language in our little bubble. And then we go out into the world and like, what the hell are you talking about? Right. So language is important. So the human brain craves novelty. So one of the best coaches I ever had said, we got to come up with 1,000 different ways tell you knuckleheads about 6 things. We got to come up with a lot of ways to talk about fruit and vegetable powders and then be creative. And here's the challenge for the women. Like, if you can't go into a bar with a bro and talk business, like straight up, like that's homework for you, man. That's your, get your butt on the field of play and practice that, right? And if you practice that, and if you have your friendly bro like Shark Tank you and challenge you, it's the refiner's fire. You'll get a little bit better, and you'll be able to dance and that back and forth. I call it conversational jazz. And in the end, you just need to know a few simple things and then ask great questions, right? Because we are the Socratic method. Like, the student knows the answer. We just got to ask those great questions to just unpackage stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way," right? So, and the thing about fear, and Jay, one of the best at it, is humor dissipates friction. So the moment you feel fearful, if you're inclined, humor is a great way to dissolve fear. For guys, it's talking smack. We guys, just like, what the fuck do you know? Like, we just talk, pardon my language, didn't mean to say that. It's like, we talk smack at each other, and that's sort of a term of endearment. For women, it may be a little different, but humor always will dissipate fear. And that's been my experience. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think another thing to dissipate fear is dropping into the heart space and having an authentic conversation. So
always. That's be a blessing, man. That's be a blessing. As soon as you do that, you're Braveheart, man.
Yeah. We don't need any scripts per se.
Nope.
We got a new program coming out, you guys, called Ditch the Pitch. It's a good program, but it's still about just being your authentic self and asking the questions, like you said, Jeff. And really important, what also echoing what you said, is the practice. My latest sport, as you know, is stand-up paddle surfing. I wanted to talk about what it takes to be masterful. You certainly mastered downhill skiing. You were at the top of the world of it. And those 10,000 hours. I don't have 10,000 hours left to surf, but I'm going to catch 10,000 waves. And where will your business be if you have 10,000 conversations, right?
Yeah. Look,
Piling up the conversations, and that'll
all possibility occurs in a conversation.
Yeah.
Whether it's a conversation with yourself, conversation with your God, conversation with your mate, your spouse, like all possibility occurs in conversation. So if you can become a professional conversationalist, it's a pretty good skill set. That's translatable in life and everywhere. So, if you want to read a great book on sales, well, we're going to get into books here in a second, but yeah, I mean, the single greatest trait that I admire and those that I respect is curiosity. Curiosity. If you can have curiosity, Curious George, like, what makes that person tick? I want to, like, investigative journalist curiosity. The questions will just like come out of you because you'll be fascinated by that human in front of you. So curiosity, I think, is a skill, a trait in people that I admire that are successful.
Okay, so we're going to run out of time here, Jeff, and you guys, we are going to have a few minutes for question and answer.
Yes, get your questions, man. Shark Tank my butt, man. Come on, come at me.
But before we do, while they're thinking of that question, Jeff, tell us your two books that you recommend, and maybe there's a third one on sales.
Yeah. 3 books. So Wild at Heart is my spiritual book, written by John Eldredge, a Christian book, but it's a spiritual book, and it basically says that we have a blueprint inside of us. And that blueprint is to find a noble battle, to be on an adventure, and to go rescue beauty. And boy, do we have that in this business. We have a noble battle, make no mistake. We are up to a big game, and there's a big competitor, whether it's drugs or food or, just the conversations, the talks of work, like noble battle, right? This is an adventure, man. People are an adventure. Are they not? People are an adventure. And then, rescuing beauty is what we do, man. On the health side, wealth side, human potential side, rescuing beauty is the fulfillment. So that's a spiritual book. And then business book is Play Bigger. And it makes the distinction in there of category killers, category kings and queens, and owning categories in industries, pioneering new categories like Uber and ride sharing, like search and Google, like coffee and Starbucks, like, streaming and Netflix. The world will know of plant powders because of our company. So the Play Bigger book is all about analyzing Silicon Valley and startups and VCs and those that owned their category and went on to become category kings. And we're the world's leader and pioneer of plant powders. And it's a great book just to help affirm and raise your level of belief in who we are and what we do and how we roll. So
That's another.
and then the third book, Sell is Human. To sell is human. And the tagline is perfect. It's the business of moving others. So you're a teacher, you're a preacher, you're a parent, you're a colleague, whoever you, we're all in sales. We just don't really come to full terms with that. Talk about being self-aware. We're in the business of moving others. And in the end, we've got tools in our toolkit, and our job is to go out and find an alignment with the tools that we have, and do they match where that person, wants to go build their life with our tools. And so the business of moving others is the tagline, but the book is called To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. I remember in the old days when people said they didn't want to be a salesperson or they can't sell, our response was always, who sold you on that idea? Right? You did.
No one likes to be sold, but people buy stuff all the time. So help them make good buying decisions, man.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Can you switch it back, Nikki, so I can see people and see who has their hand up, or they can jump in if you have a question for Jeff?
I'm going to do that, Chris, but you can also on your end, you can hit view gallery.
Got it.
So that might help too.
Okay. Who's got a question for Jeff? Go ahead and speak up.
Don't be shy, people. Come on. Come get me.
I have a question.
Yo.
Hi. You started to talk about if you wanted, sell to a guy or get a guy to from a woman's perspective, or actually from a guy's perspective, what you got to do. I know you talked about the business sense, but were you going to say a little more about that? Like you were saying, you got to be able to do this or something.
Well, yeah. So let me ask you, can you explain how we make money on a napkin? Can you do that right now? Could you sit down and on a napkin show how we make money?
Probably, yeah.
Why don't you have you tried that out on 20 men?
No.
Just like, can I practice on you? Can I practice on you? Can I practice on you?
Okay.
Can I practice on you? Like there's some homework for you. And chances are if you go into the gym 20 days in a row, you'll probably be better after 20 days. We did a team training a while back, and people had to send me their business story 100 times on Voxer, and I wouldn't even start coaching them until the 50th one. And it had to be less than a minute and a half. It's repetition, man. And as you, I will assure you, if you tell your business story 100 times in a row, and you can do it 3 times a day for the next 30 days, by that 99th time, you'll be editing excess. You'll be getting rid of the drama. You'll be getting down to the big nuggets. But I would, just try to explain our money on a napkin to some bros, and I think you'll find that will be helpful for you, right? If that makes sense.
Good question, Jennifer.
Okay.
Kristen. Oh, go ahead, Kristen.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff. I have seen you some on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
So, or heard you. I guess I can't really see you except by poking you. But I'm just kind of curious. I've listened to. I hopped on one, but it was toward the end of one of your talks. So I'm kind of curious just what you're like, is your strategy, if you have a strategy or what you're trying to do.
Trying to meet people. I'm trying to meet people. It's a great tool. It's a great place to meet people and get in conversation with them and show that you can actually have a conversation. And you can't hide on Clubhouse. There's no way to hide if you want to talk, right? So yeah, I'm using it as a networking tool. Yeah.
Okay.
And was that your question? I don't know. Was that your question?
Yeah. I mean, I guess and then are those people then is your idea to get people to friend you? I don't understand Clubhouse all that well, so I'm pretty new on there, but is your idea to get them to connect with you on Instagram where you can take you
Absolutely. It's like, who is this guy? What is him? I want to look, people want to be involved in people that are up to something, and go in there and be up to something, and people will want to figure, and you know, they learn who you are, and if they play in your sandbox, maybe they want to connect with you. And I'm connecting with people off of it too. So it's a real networking tool that seems to be working for me. Yeah.
And you know, Kristen, Caprice is having great results with it.
Yeah, I mean, how does a middle-aged guy talk to a 22-year-old girl on Instagram who's in healthy living? That's creepy, man. But if I meet her on Clubhouse and we have a conversation, oh yeah, that's cool. So for me, it's a way to have conversations, and I'm in the business of conversation. So
This is Debbie. Kristen, I've been on Clubhouse just a couple of weeks, but I'm finding it incredible connecting with people through instant message on Instagram, and just, yeah, getting to know them. It's been a lot of fun, actually. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I think I'm going to do is wrap this up with a quick story that some of you have heard about. A coward dies 1,000 deaths and a warrior but one. And you've probably heard that saying. I've always introduced it as a Native American saying, but you know what? The Native American that wrote that, his name was Shakespeare. I found that out this year.
that was a good Indian. That was a good Indian.
Yeah, he was good. But the story is that a coward dies, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a warrior but one. This goes back to the fear issue. And a picture of yourself at the grocery store, and you overhear the person in front of you is checking out. The attendant asks her how she's doing. She said, "Oh, not so good. My daughter's got this, has cancer or something else, some other disease, doesn't matter." But you hear it and you think, oh, you know, there are no accidents. I probably should say something. But you don't have the courage. You don't get it out to say it. You stay in your fear. And when you're paying for your stuff, you're already starting to beat yourself up and kick yourself. That was my chance. Obviously, I was supposed to talk to that person. I didn't do it. I'm worthless. Why do I do this? I shouldn't be doing this business. You go out to the car with your groceries, and I'll be darned if she isn't parked right next to you and she hasn't left yet. Oh, you got a second chance. What do I say? What do I say? I got to think of something to say. And you don't think of anything, and she drives off. And then you start kicking yourself again, beating yourself up. Those are the 1,000 deaths that happens when you don't step away from your fear. And you drive home and you kick your dog and you throw some stuff around and you're all upset. Now, that's the 1,000 deaths. A warrior, the next scene, you're back at the store, you hear this person say something and you say, "Excuse me, I overheard what you said, and I think I might have something that may be of interest to you." And they say, "Get away from me. I don't talk to strangers. What are you? Get out of my face." Game over, one death. Okay.
Bless their heart.
Bless their heart. All right. That's a good ending, Jeff. Jeff, thanks so much. We appreciate you. And as you guys can see, that not only does he turn his skis well, he can turn a phrase pretty dang good too. So love your energy. Thank you all for being with us. We have
If everybody wants to unmute and give Jeff a big warm heat. Thank you, Chris. Will you just say something first?
yes,
Thank you, Jeff.
Call it at
Thank
7
you.
o'clock. Men's call at 7 on human performance.
Good
So,
job, bro.
all right.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Jeff. Always.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jeff.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
job. Love you.
Love you guys.
All right.